Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we're going to talk about some of my favorite books of 2026 thus far. In the first 3 months of the year, I read 19 books, and of those 19, I have selected the top 3 from each month, January through March, to talk about with you today. So starting off strong in January, we did have Through Each Tomorrow by Gabrielle Meyer. This is book 6 in the Timeless series, and if you've watched any of my other videos, you likely have seen the Timeless series mentioned. The Timeless series is one of my absolute favorite series that I have ever read, and Gabrielle Meyer just continues going strong book to book to book. I have about 3 of them that are my top favorites. But this one was another really good one, and at the end, something happens that is just so satisfying for readers who have been a part of the series so far. Through Each Tomorrow follows both Charles and Cecily. So this one has 2 different individuals that we're following back and forth. And this is the first time in any of the Timeless books that we have had one of the main POVs be from a male perspective. So that was a little different and unique for this one. If you're new to the Timeless series, each book follows a main character or main characters who are able to cross between multiple time periods. And those characters must choose which time period they want to remain in by a certain birthday. Sometimes that's 21, sometimes that's 25. It looks a little different depending on their particular circumstance, but they must make that decision. Now, Charles and Cecily are related in one of the time periods. Charles is Cecily's stepbrother, actually. And the 2 time periods that we follow in this one are 1883 and 1563. So as you can imagine, 1563, we're pretty far back, which was really unique to see. And in 1563, Cecily actually serves as a lady's maid to Queen Elizabeth. I enjoyed both of the main characters' stories, Charles and Cecily, but I have to say, I adored Cecily's story so much, particularly the story between Cecily and Drew. They had such a unique and fun story. I wanted to keep reading just to find out what was going to happen to them, because as you can imagine, in every single one of Gabrielle Meyer's books, there comes a point where there is some higher stakes, and this one is no exception. The next one for January is Until Leaves Fall in Paris by Sarah Sundin. Sarah Sundin writes World War II historical fiction, and her books have been amazing so far. This was the second book that I've read by her in what is kind of a loosely interconnected standalone series. They technically can be read standalone, but sometimes you have characters that do cross over between the different books. So I would recommend reading them in their order of publication date. As the title implies, Until Leaves Fall in Paris does take place in Paris, France, and the main characters that we follow there are Lucy and Paul. Now, if you read the first book in this interconnected standalone series, Paul actually does make an appearance in that first book. So you have the opportunity to see him again in this one. Lucy is an American ballerina, but she actually gives all of that up in order to purchase a bookshop from a Jewish family who needs to leave France in order to escape the Nazis. Paul is also an American, but he runs a factory there, and throughout the course of the story, he actually works to kind of sabotage things so that the Nazis can't get what they need from his factory, and also gathering information. So he pretends to be aligned with them in order to gain that information and learn things about what they're doing. This of course puts him in a really difficult situation, and Lucy herself is kind of doing some similar things, and it puts her in a difficult situation. So as you can imagine, these stakes in this book are fairly high for both of our main characters, and Sarah does an incredible job of really pulling you into their stories and making you feel those stakes and making you incredibly concerned about what is going to happen to these characters. Paul also has the most adorable daughter, and her appearances in this book are just the sweetest thing ever. So she was also a wonderful character in this story. And then the romance between Lucy and Paul was so great. The things that they do for each other and the things that they go through along the way. It just really brings their story to light. It makes you root for them. It brings that period of history to life where you can really just see how difficult that was and how scary that was for the people during that time. So I definitely enjoyed that. I definitely recommend it, and I cannot wait to read the next book in that interconnected series. And for the third book in January, we have The House on Foster Hill by Jaime Jo Wright. Jaime Jo Wright has quickly become an auto-buy author for me. I want to read everything she has ever written. Her stories are completely immersive. They are kind of more gothic suspense. So they take place in a dual time period situation where you're following a historical time period and a character and characters in that time period. Then you're also following characters in the current time period. So you see these stories that, though separate, you're kind of learning things separately as you're going along the story, but there's something that connects the two and something that plays into each of those time periods. I believe this is the first book that Jaime Jo Wright wrote in this kind of setup where she has it with a historical and a current time period. And it was so neat getting to read this. She did an amazing job. There are some difficult topics in this, so just heads up on that. But she handles everything really, really well, and the suspense element is so well done. In this story, we're following Kane Prescott in the current time period and Ivy Thorpe in the historical time period. Kane's story starts by her moving into this area that is the same area that Ivy lived back in the early 1900s. She purchases a house there, sight unseen, and moves into the area and quickly discovers that there's a lot going on with that house. First of all, it's kind of falling apart, and second of all, there's an obvious mystery tied to this new place that she now owns. Back during the early 1900s, during Ivy's timeline, she actually is pulled into this mystery of this woman who is found murdered on that property. And that sets Ivy off on trying to figure out who this woman was and how she came to be on the property. And of course, you know there's going to be an intersection at some point. But this was a really, really fun read. Absolutely enjoyed it so much and would highly recommend. And now let's move on to February. Had some really fun reads in February as well. One of those is a fantasy written by Mary Mecham, and that is Assassin of Fire and Sacrifice. Now this book was a quick read, but a fun read. Basically what happens is this girl is infiltrating this other country, and she actually has to marry that prince of that country in order to essentially take him out. And what's really interesting about this country is that the prince and the rest of his family are phoenix shifters, so they can actually shift into phoenixes, which is really a fun concept. Of course, this story is filled with political intrigue. There are assassinations, there is a lot of danger, there's romance, and as you would probably suspect, enemies to lovers. I really enjoyed this. This was the first book that I read by Mary Mecham, and I am excited to get into more of her stories. She writes fantasy, fairy tale retellings, all of that kind of fun stuff. And I am excited to get into her backlist and to keep reading her new ones. She actually released a brand new book that just came out, I think, the end of March. So I'm excited to get my hands on that one. Next we have Lumen by J.J. Fischer, and this is part of the Nightingale trilogy. These books have been so good so far. I have been really enjoying these. J.J. Fischer has a really neat way of writing as well. There's something about her writing that really pulls you in, and she has a lot of really amazing quotes throughout the books. The first one was like that, and the second one continued to be like that. And a lot of people really discovering things about themselves, about the world, and definitely threads of faith woven into this. Even though it's a fantasy, you can really feel those faith elements interweaved into the story and into the things that the characters are learning and discovering. Though I adore multiple characters in these books, especially Stephanie and Cass and Dorian, I absolutely love Jewel, and she is actually the wolf that you see throughout these books, and she is just such a fun character to have in these stories. She's beautiful, majestic, and just has this little bit of extra sense about her where things are concerned, and she is loyal as anything to her people. I'm hoping to read the last book in this trilogy really soon, and I can't wait to find out the end of the story. I can't really say a whole lot about what's going on in this one because it is the second book in a series, but I will say that I definitely recommend this series overall. And lastly, for February, we have The Lady's Mine by Francine Rivers. This book was unlike anything else I ever read by Francine Rivers. It was lighthearted, which isn't really something that I would say for most of her stories. Her stories tend to be very intense, very emotional, but this one was much lighter and I absolutely loved it. There was a lot of humor in this, and I feel like Francine Rivers does an amazing job with humor, and I would really enjoy seeing more stories like this from her. In this story, you follow Catherine and Matthias and all the antics that the two of them get up to in a mining town in the late 1800s, and there were literally sections of the book that I was laughing out loud. There's a little bit of mystery, there's a little bit of danger, there's a character that I absolutely despise in this book. You definitely get kind of the full range of emotions toward different characters in this story, but it was really, really good. There are a few books that I love by Francine Rivers, but there was something about this lighthearted one that just worked for me, and I enjoyed it so much. Just a fun Western. It really was a good time, and I would love to read another book like this. All right, we have arrived at March and some of my latest reads. So my top 3 books from March, we have a fantasy, we have a historical fiction, and we have a contemporary romance in this one. So first we have the fantasy, which is Embergold by Rachelle Nelson. So good. This had dragons in it, and I love dragons. So when you have a story with dragons, it's just already going to be something that I'm very, very interested in. I don't want to give away too much about this story because I feel like it's better to go in at least semi-blind, because I think it just sets it up better to really find out what's going on in the story. But essentially, it starts out with a girl who's living with her father in the woods, and her father is under the threat of this dragon. And throughout the course of the story, you find out what is actually happening there and really getting to see what is real and what isn't. And there are definitely strong elements of betrayal in this, and our main female character must deal with all these different things that are happening around her and her trying to sort through what she thought she knew versus what the reality is. And on the front it even says, how can she ever trust again, especially after she learns what dragons truly are? And so that gives you a little hint for this story. It's really, really good. I enjoyed it. I probably will be reading this one again. I loved it, and I'm looking forward to reading other things by Rachelle Nelson. Next we have The Words We Lost by Nicole Deese. This book, y'all, it was so good. As you can see on the side, I have quite a number of tabs in this one. It was amazing. There were so many things in it that hit me personally in this story, and it was really something. I had heard really good things about this series and was excited to try it out, but I never imagined how much I was going to be pulled into this story and how invested I was going to become with these characters. And there were so many truths and there were so many different things woven into this that were just very well done. And like I said, they can hit pretty hard. The story itself is a bit of an emotional roller coaster, but it is so good. This one is definitely going to hold a special place in my heart for sure. I really enjoyed it. There was just something about it. It's like one of those instances where you read the right book at the right time. This really felt like that for me. I feel like I read it at just the right moment in my life because it had such an impact. There are 2 other books in this series, and I cannot wait to read those because if they're anything like the first one, I know it's going to be an amazing journey. And finally in March we have Sense and Suitability by Pepper Basham. This was really good. I actually hadn't read any historical fiction by Pepper Basham before. I've started her contemporary series that starts out with Authentically Izzy, and I really enjoyed it. But there was something about this book. It was amazing and very well done. It definitely had that feel and that nod to Jane Austen, and it was really neat to see how Pepper wove in different elements and little Jane Austen influences, especially for the book Sense and Sensibility. I absolutely loved our 2 main characters, Emmy and Simon. They were amazing. They were fantastic. Simon was so multi-layered, and you get to really know his character throughout the course of the book, because he's really labeled as something and it's really the fact that he's a little something else. So it's one of those, like, don't look just at the surface because you don't know what's lying underneath. It was really good. Emmy was a fantastic female main character, and she has a little bit of a secret herself that you kind of learn about along the way. And the yearning between the two of them, just so well done. Pepper has another book coming out that is a nod to Pride and Prejudice, which is my favorite Jane Austen story. I cannot wait to read that one. Really looking forward to it. So if you like that kind of flair, a little bit of Jane Austen, that kind of Regency feel, I would highly recommend these books from Pepper. And that's it. Those are my top 9 books of 2026 so far. It's already been an incredibly good reading year, and I can't wait to see what the second quarter of the year is going to bring. I hope you were able to get some good recommendations for yourself from these books that we covered today. If you have read any of these, definitely let me know, and let me know how you enjoyed them. And please let me know what favorites you have read so far in 2026. I'm always looking for recommendations, and I'm sure other people watching this video will be looking for recommendations. And so you will be helping all of us out. Thank you for spending this time with me. I appreciate you all so very much. And as always, remember to keep following your dreams and believing in the magic of this thing called life. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you again soon.